Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Makinig kayo sa aking payo. Ito ang tandaan ninyo. Huwag sasaksi sa mga bagay na hindi naman totoo. Huwag magbibitiw ng mga salita kung hindi ka naman sigurado, lalo kung nakasalalay dito ang dangal ng isang tao. At sa mga nakikita sa internet, huwag agad maniniwala. Mag-ingat upang hindi kayo madaya. Dahil alam naman natin, hindi lahat ng balita ay tama. Maging matalino. Huwag magpapaloko. Mag-ingat sa pagpo-post, pagla-like, pag-share ng kung ano-ano. Dahil baka mamaya hindi mo na namamalayan, isa ka na pala sa mga tao nagkakalat ng maling kwento.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinalaki, kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong palapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten, sie wertschätzen.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. First, China said it wants to avoid more clashes in a border dispute with India that has resulted in the first deadly confrontation between the two nuclear powers in decades. The two countries have traded blame for Monday's high-altitude brawl that left at least 20 Indian soldiers dead, with China refusing to confirm so far whether there were any casualties on its side. Take a look.
从中方来讲，我们当然不希望看到有更多的冲突。此次事态的是非曲直是十分清楚的，有关事情发生在实控线中方一侧，责任不在中方。
He also said China urges India to strictly refrain frontline troops, do not illegally cross the border, do not make provocative gestures, do not take any unilateral actions that will complicate the border situation. The clashes reportedly involved intense fighting and no gunfire, in line with long-standing tactics to avoid a full military battle over the disputed 3,500-kilometer border. The Hindustan Times reported the soldiers threw punches and stones at each other, with Chinese troops allegedly attacking their Indian counterparts with rods and nail-studded clubs during the more than 6-hour fight. Now, Beijing claimed the Indian troops crossed the borderline twice, provoking and attacking Chinese personnel, resulting in serious physical confrontation between border forces on the two sides. India and China have never even agreed on the length of their line of actual control frontier, and each side uses different frontier proposals made by Britain to China in the 19th century to back their claims. They fought a brief war in 1962 in which China took territory from India. Further deadly clashes followed in 1967, but the last shot fired in anger was in 1975 when 4 Indian soldiers were ambushed and killed along the dividing line in Arunachal Pradesh. In 2017, there was a 72-day showdown after Chinese forces moved into the disputed Doklam Plateau on the China-Indian-Bhutan border. The recent uptick in tensions began on May 9 when several Indian and Chinese soldiers were injured in a clash involving fist and stone throwing at Nakula in India's Sikkim state, which borders Bhutan, Nepal, and China. An expert, Harsh V. Pant, from New Delhi-based think tank Observer Research Foundation, said that this dispute, if not handled correctly, can really escalate into something much greater or much graver than initially imagined. And there is a risk of escalation between two rivals who happen to be the world's most populous countries, and both have nuclear weapons. Take a look.
The talks were going on. Senior level talks had happened just around 2 weeks back, and the sense we were getting was that both sides had actually disengaged from a number of other points which were also under contention. So the sense that you got was perhaps the two sides are now, moving away from the brink. But suddenly this happens, and you sort of recognize the challenge that perhaps is there, continues to be there on the border. And if not handled correctly, then this can really escalate to something much graver than we had initially imagined. So clearly now, the ball is now in the courts of Mr. Modi and the Chinese president, because they have to take a call as to whether they really want to clamp down on this escalation and make sure that this is terminated here and now. I think China has consistently been making this case that they were worried about India's getting greater control over Ladakh, eastern Ladakh in particular, India building better infrastructure in that part of the valley. So I think there is a lot which China has been worried about. And China perhaps wants to make a show of this by signaling to India that this region is strategically important, and therefore we will fight for it. Although the realities on the ground are such that India retains important vantage points, and India retains a strategic advantage. But China, with its better infrastructure, with its better military capabilities, perhaps thinks that this is the time to push India to see how far India will go.
In order to discuss the situation in the India-China border areas, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for an all-party meeting at 5 p.m. on June 19. India said Tuesday that 20 of its soldiers were killed after a violent clash with Chinese forces a day earlier in the strategically important Galwan Valley on the Himalayan frontier, a dramatic escalation that represents the first combat fatalities between the Asian powers since 1975. The clash follows weeks of low-level tensions after several Indian and Chinese soldiers were injured in a high-altitude fistfight on the border at Sikkim State in early May. Indian officials said that within days, Chinese troops encroached over the demarcation line further west in Ladakh region, and India then moved in extra troops to positions opposite. Last week, both countries said they would peacefully resolve the face-off after a high-level meeting between army commanders. But on Tuesday, India revealed that those efforts had gone badly wrong, with both sides blaming each other. Asian regional superpowers India and China share a long history of mistrust and conflict along their lengthy border, and tensions flared this week in their first deadly clash in more than 4 decades. The world's two most populous nations and nuclear-armed neighbors have never even agreed on the length of their line of actual control frontier, which straddles the strategically important Himalayan region. Recent decades have seen numerous skirmishes along the border, including a brief but bloody war in 1962. The deaths of the 20 Indian soldiers in clashes with Chinese troops on the Asian giant's border will not be in vain. That is according to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Take a look.
मैं देश को भरोसा दिलाना चाहता हूं, हमारे जवानों का बलिदान व्यर्थ नहीं जाएगा। हमारे लिए भारत की अखंडता और संप्रभुता सर्वोच्च है, और इसकी रक्षा करने से हमें कोई भी रोक नहीं सकता। इस बारे में किसी को भी जरा भी भ्रम या संदेह नहीं होना चाहिए। भारत शांति चाहता है, लेकिन भारत उकसाने पर हर हाल में यथोचित जवाब देने में सक्षम है। भारत माता के वीर सपूतों ने गलवान वैली में हमारी मातृभूमि की रक्षा करते हुए सर्वोच्च बलिदान दिया है। मैं देश की सेवा में उनके इस महान बलिदान के लिए
The Galwan River Valley incident is by far the worst to occur on the LAC for some time. It also comes against a backdrop of several years of deteriorating relations between China and India, dating from the rise to power of Chinese President Xi Jinping. At the same time, China and India have also quarreled and competed over a number of other issues. New Delhi has emerged as a vocal critic of President Xi's Belt and Road Initiative and has tried to dissuade other states in South Asia and the Indian Ocean region from signing on to the BRI projects. India has complained about China's trade practices, pointing to a growing trade deficit with its northern neighbor, as well as Beijing's alleged attempts to influence the policies of smaller states such as Nepal. Meanwhile, India has strengthened security ties with the US, Japan, and Australia, among others. North Korea threatened to bolster its military presence in and around the demilitarized zone a day after blowing up its liaison office with South Korea, prompting sharp criticism from Seoul. More on this news, joining us live from Seoul, is Christine Jewel Uyabut. Hello, Christine.
Hello, Alma. On Tuesday afternoon, North Korea blew up the Inter-Korean Liaison Office in Galwan after it threatened to take action if North Korean defectors went ahead with a campaign to send propaganda leaflets into the north. The office, set up in September 2018, was one outcome of the Panmunjom Declaration announced April 27 that year after the first summit between President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This is where the inter-Korean projects and joint events were discussed, but it had been non-operational since January of this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The demolition came 3 days after Kim's powerful sister Kim Yo-jong issued a statement threatening hostilities, including military action, to protest anti-Pyongyang leaflets sent across the border from the south by North Korean defectors and activists. Kim Yo-gun, first Deputy Director of the National Security Council, or NSC, said in a media briefing after an emergency meeting presided over by Chung Eui-yong, President Moon's National Security Advisor, that the South Korean government today expressed strong regret over the North blowing up the South-North Joint Liaison Office building opened under the 2018 Panmunjom Declaration. The North's destruction of the office is a violation of everyone's expectation for the development of inter-Korean relations and the establishment of peace of the Korean Peninsula. Kim said, the government has made it clear that the North is fully responsible for all incidents that may occur because of this explosion. We sternly warn that if the North continues to take steps to aggravate the situation, we will respond strongly, Kim said. According to the Vice Unification Minister and also the head of the Liaison Office, Suho, the destruction was an unacceptable act, adding the government was lodging a strong protest. North Korea said Wednesday it has rejected South Korea's offer to send special envoys and will redeploy troops to 2 inter-Korean business zones near the border, unrelentingly ratcheting up tensions a day after the regime blew up a joint liaison office. Kim Yo-jong also issued a harshly worded statement lambasting South Korean President Moon Jae-in for failing to apologize for such leafleting and accusing him of pro-US flunkeyism. South Korea reacted angrily to the North's moves, with the presidential office Chung Wade slamming Kim Yo-jong for her rude and senseless criticism and warning it will no longer tolerate such indiscreet words and acts. The Defense Ministry warned that the North will pay the price if it actually takes military action, and the Unification Ministry expressed strong regret over the North's plan to send troops to the joint economic zones. Earlier, the General Staff of the North Korean People's Army said it will send troops to the now shuttered Inter-Korean Industrial Complex in its border city of Kaesong and the Mount Kumgang Tourist Zone on the East Coast, 2 key symbols of inter-Korean reconciliation. The North also said it will restore guard posts removed from the demilitarized zone, separating the 2 sides, and resume all kinds of regular military exercises near the inter-Korean border in an apparent move to abolish a military tension reduction deal signed in 2018. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Christine, for your updates there in South Korea. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care.
This is Christine Jewel Uyabut. We live in interesting times.
Dr. Na Liang Tuang, a North Korean expert at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore, spoke about the recent souring of South-North Korea relations in the wake of North Korea's spectacular destruction of its liaison office with the South. Let's listen in.
They've been under sanctions since 2016, and these are particularly tight economic sanctions, which hurt quite a bit from the United Nations Security Council. That has caused a significant amount of pain for North Korea. They haven't had any luck getting these sanctions lifted, getting these sanctions abrogated. And so there's a certain degree of frustration amongst the North that if we are nice, if we play nice, it's not working. So it's time to show how nasty we can be. They are kind of upset, or they're kind of angry that South Korea has not proven effective as a facilitator with the United States, and has not been successful in exerting any interest, any influence on Washington to get these sanctions lifted. So because of all this, North Korea feels that it is time to revert to its traditional pattern of, how would I say this, coercive antagonistic diplomacy, where they show a very disagreeable and a very belligerent face to begin with. Then at some point in time, when they feel that it is to their benefit, then they will start to ease off on the antagonism or on the provocations. It conforms with with previous cycles of North Korean antagonism and diplomacy. They always go through a Jekyll and Hyde phase, whereby on one hand they can be very negotiable, on the other hand they can be very, very antagonistic and very, very belligerent. So this is simply the belligerent phase that we see. if he insists on turning up the heat in the United States, there might exist the possibility of incurring the wrath, dissatisfaction, or anger of the Trump administration. Which, if that were to happen, you can expect tensions in the Korean Peninsula to spike significantly and substantially beyond anything that we've seen so far. So it has the potential to get much worse. I don't think there is much of the potential for it to get better, especially in the short to medium term.
All right. In the United Kingdom, the country just approved the use of life-saving coronavirus drug dexamethasone in its biggest breakthrough yet. Joining us live from the United Kingdom is Aribel Celestino. Hello, Aribel.
Hi, Alma. And yeah, you're right. Here's our update from the UK. The steroid dexamethasone has become the first drug to be shown to significantly reduce the risk of death among severe COVID-19 cases, in a trial hailed as a major breakthrough in the fight against this disease. As a result, Britain will immediately start giving dexamethasone to COVID-19 patients. Health Secretary Matt Hancock posted a video on Twitter. Let's listen in.
Absolutely delighted that today we can announce the first successful clinical trial for a treatment for COVID-19. Thanks to the brilliant scientists at Oxford University working with the NHS and funded by the government, we've been able to develop the science that shows that dexamethasone reduces mortality by between a sixth and a third. And it's because we back the science and because we've taken an approach that's guided by the science that we've been able to deliver this result. You know, in truth, UK life sciences are leading the world in vaccine development, in the development of treatments, and in immunology. But it's by working together that we've been able to bring this result to bear. We've been stockpiling it since March, so we now have 200,000 courses that are ready to go. And we're working with the NHS so that the NHS standard treatment for COVID-19 will include dexamethasone from this afternoon. I want to thank the NHS and the 6,000 patients who took part in the clinical study, and my own team led by Professor Jonathan Van Tam, who've done such an absolutely brilliant job, and the commercial experts in the department who've been there buying to make sure that we've got the stockpiles ready should this result come off. And it is good news, but most of all, it's good news for the thousands of lives that dexamethasone has the potential to save while we deal with this terrible virus.
Research was led by a team from the University of Oxford administered the widely available drug to more than 2,000 severely ill COVID-19 patients. Among those who could only breathe with the help of a ventilator, dexamethasone reduced deaths by 1/3 and by 1/5 in other patients receiving oxygen only, according to preliminary results. Commonly used to treat a range of allergic reactions as well as rheumatoid arthritis and asthma, dexamethasone is an anti-inflammatory. Daily doses of the steroid could prevent 1 in 8 ventilated patient deaths and save 1 of every 25 patients requiring oxygen alone, the team said. The trial carried out by the Recovery Research Group that is searching for effective COVID-19 treatments included a control group of 4,000 patients who did not receive the drug. Dexamethasone is the first drug to be shown to improve survival in COVID-19. This is an extremely welcome result, said Peter Horby, professor of emerging infectious diseases in the Nuffield Department of Medicine, University of Oxford. Dexamethasone is inexpensive on the shelf and can be used immediately to save lives worldwide. A number of existing drugs have been trialed as a treatment against the novel coronavirus with mixed results. Trials of treatment of the anti-arthritis drug hydroxychloroquine were halted in several countries after a major study in the Lancet Medical Journal suggested it showed no benefit among COVID-19 patients and even increased the risk of death. The study has since been retracted due to inconsistencies in the data, but others have come to the same conclusion. Remdesivir, an antiviral that appears to reduce the length of treatment in some patients, is already being used in Britain. But one study in April showed it had no significant clinical benefit. The fact that an existing, cheap, and largely side effect-free medication has shown to be effective in severe COVID-19 cases is of tremendous importance, according to Stephen Griffin, Associate Professor in the School of Medicine, University of Leeds. There is now the realistic scope for further improving the clinical management of this devastating disease, said Griffin, who was not involved in the study. CAMEC said that in light of the study results, dexamethasone must now be rolled out and accessed by thousands of critical ill patients around the world. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Aribel, for your updates. Thank you, EBC UK Bureau.
Thank you so much. Reporting from the UK, I am Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization hailed as a life-saving scientific breakthrough the British use of a basic steroid to treat the severely ill COVID-19 patients, saving about a third of them. WHO head Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said, quote, "This is great news, and I congratulate the government of the UK, the University of Oxford, and the many hospitals and patients in the UK who have contributed to this life-saving scientific breakthrough." For patients on ventilators, the treatment was shown to reduce mortality by about one-third, and for patients requiring only oxygen, mortality was cut by about one-fifth, according to the preliminary findings shared with the WHO. The benefit was only seen in patients seriously ill with COVID-19 and wasn't observed in patients with milder disease. Dexamethasone is a steroid that has been used since the 1960s to reduce inflammation in a range of conditions, including inflammatory disorders and certain cancers. It has been listed on the WHO model list of essential medicines since 1977 in multiple formulations and is currently off patent and affordably available in most countries. Meanwhile, authorities in Berlin have placed 369 households under quarantine after dozens tested positive for COVID-19, an unprecedented event in the capital since the crisis began. The outbreak in the borough of Neukölln involved 6 apartment buildings with 57 people testing positive. The inhabitants of these 369 households at 7 different locations in the district are not allowed to leave their homes for 14 days. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's government, meanwhile, is seeking to ban big events until at least the end of October over fears of renewed transmission of the coronavirus. According to an official draft seen by AFP on Wednesday, Berlin also plans for schools to return to normal operations after the summer holidays, although recommendations for social distancing and mask wearing in shops and on public transport will stay, according to the document to be discussed by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and premiers of Germany's 16 states later Wednesday local time. Meanwhile, Beijing's airports canceled 2/3 of all flights, and schools in the Chinese capital were closed again, and on Wednesday as authorities rushed to contain a new coronavirus outbreak linked to a wholesale food market. The city reported 31 new cases on Wednesday, while officials urged residents not to leave Beijing, with fears growing about a second wave of infections in China, which had largely brought its outbreak under control. Tens of thousands of people linked to the new Beijing virus cluster, believed to have started in the sprawling Xinfandi wholesale food market, are being tested. with almost 30 residential compounds in the city now under lockdown. At least 1,255 scheduled flights were canceled on Wednesday morning, according to state-run People's Daily. Nearly 70% of all trips to and from Beijing's main airports. Officials have closed 11 markets and disinfected thousands of food and beverage businesses in Beijing after the outbreak was detected. The city has now reported 137 infections over the last 6 days, with 6 new asymptomatic cases and 3 suspected cases on Wednesday, according to the Municipal Health Commission. India's official coronavirus death toll leaped by more than 2,000 on Wednesday as the hard-hit country struggles to contain a ballooning health crisis that has overwhelmed hospitals. Authorities said the sharp increase in fatalities to 11,903 was mainly due to Mumbai and Delhi updating their figures. Death tolls in both cities have been increasing in recent days. Mumbai blamed unspecified accounting discrepancies for the increase of 862 to 3,165 deaths. Delhi added more than 430 fatalities, taking its total to over 1,800. Officials said 93 of the Delhi deaths and 55 in Mumbai had been in the previous 24 hours. The epidemic has badly hit India's densely populated major cities, and Chennai in the south has ordered a new lockdown from Friday because of a surge in cases there. And the news came as Germany urged its nationals in India to consider leaving for their own safety, while France has warned its citizens in New Delhi to stay home unless going to an airport to return to Europe. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern ordered the military to oversee the country's border controls Wednesday after a bungle that allowed 2 people with the coronavirus to leave quarantine. A 24-day run with no new cases was broken on Tuesday when it emerged 2 women who recently arrived from Britain were allowed out of quarantine early without being tested for the virus, even though one had mild symptoms. The pair were eventually swabbed and proved to be infected, but only after they made a 650-kilometer road trip from Auckland to Wellington to see a dying relative. Take a look.
I am appointing the Assistant Chief of Defence, Air Commodore Digby Webb, to oversee all quarantine and managed isolation facilities, including the processes around the exit of those who have been in these facilities. Our borders and the controls at our borders must be rigorous. They must be disciplined, and they must have the confidence of ministers and all of you, New Zealanders who got us here. Our efforts to date to beat the virus have been extraordinary. However, there is no room for error, even if it is human error. It is totally unacceptable that procedures we were advised were in place were not. Our job is now to fix that, and that is exactly what I intend to do. I cannot allow the gains we have all made to be squandered by processes not being upheld. Throughout COVID-19, there has been pressure from many corners, including the courts, to relax the rules around compassionate exemptions. This case has proven our need for caution. While it may be a hard and unpopular position to take, it is the right one for our country.
The South Pacific nation last week scrapped domestic social distancing measures while maintaining strong border restrictions. Prime Minister Ardern on Wednesday suspended the program that allowed the women to be released early from quarantine on compassionate grounds, saying New Zealand's successful virus response could not be undermined. She also stressed that the women who were visiting a dying relative had done nothing wrong and complied with health protocols at all times. The women remain in isolation as health officials scramble to test about 320 people they had contact with while in New Zealand. Eagle News will be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Mga kababayan, naharap na naman po tayo sa mabigat na pagsubok na ito. Ito yung COVID-19.
I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's safe.
Nandito po kami para hikayatin pa po kayo na maging matibay.
Mas maging matatag po tayo and just stay positive po sa lahat po ng nangyayari ngayon.
Mga mahal kong kababayan, lampasan po natin, pagtagumpayan po natin ang pagsubok na ito.
Stay strong sa panahon po na to.
Huwag tayong mawawalan ng pag-asa.
At inihikayat din po namin kayo na sana makinig po tayo sa ating gobyerno.
Sumunod muna tayo sa gobyerno dahil yun yung pinakamainam na paraan para hindi na lumagana pa yung virus.
Let's all stay at home.
Spend time with our loved ones, with our families.
At higit po sa lahat, make sure to pray for everyone, pray for everything that is going on right now, especially our frontliners po who are sacrificing their lives to take care of everything.
Higit sa lahat, patuloy tayong lumapit, magtiwala at manalangin sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Lagi tayong manalangin dahil yung po ang may pinaka-mainam na solusyon sa lahat po ng mga problema natin.
God bless you and your family. Please stay strong and keep our faith.
Tuloy po ang laban.
The COVID-19 crisis has put another 200,000 Syrian refugees in need of emergency assistance in the last 3 months alone, according to UN humanitarians. In an appeal for funding to confront new challenges posed by the health emergency, the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, said that the Syrian conflict has already created more than 5.5 million refugees seeking shelter in Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. And their situation has worsened as many have lost jobs because of the pandemic lockdown measures. Take a look.
The number of vulnerable refugees who lack the basic resources to survive in exile has dramatically surged as a result of the public health emergency. The refugee hosting communities in countries in Syria's neighborhood experience similar hardships. Many refugees have lost what were already meager incomes, forcing them to cut down on the most basic needs. That includes food and medicine. We have now also seen, in addition to the families that have already been identified as vulnerable, another 200,000 refugees just in this period of 3 months who, because of the impact, needed emergency assistance. People resort to the measures that would allow them to somehow make ends meet. We have evidence of people trying to skip meals in order to spread out the food so it can last longer. They may skip taking medication. Everything that is considered right now something where they can cut costs. Jordan, for example, only 17,000 out of 49,000 newly identified vulnerable families received emergency cash support, as UNHCR is lacking the funds to extend its programs. It is a very important point that the refugees, internally displaced, stateless people are included in the national public health responses. Only if everybody is being looked after and everybody's safe, we can all be safe.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on police reforms that he says will encourage police departments nationwide to adopt the highest professional standards as the country is roiled by protests over the killing of black citizens by police. Take a look.
We need to bring law enforcement and communities closer together, not to drive them apart. Under the executive order I'm signing today, we will prioritize federal grants from the Department of Justice to police departments that seek independent credentialing, certifying that they meet high standards, and in fact, in certain cases, the highest standard. That's where they do the best. On the use of force and de-escalation training. And nobody is more opposed to the small number of bad police officers, and you have them. They're very tiny. I use the word tiny. It's a very small percentage, but you have them. But nobody wants to get rid of them more than the overwhelming number of really good and great police officers.
And the Trump administration filed a lawsuit Tuesday seeking to prevent publication of former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book, which is expected to provide a damning insider portrait of the White House. The Department of Justice alleged in its suit filed in federal court in Washington that publication of the book risks compromising national security through revelation of classified information that Bolton had access to during his turbulent 17-month stint in the White House. The suit says Bolton failed to have the text vetted, meaning his book would be in clear breach of agreements he signed as a condition of his employment and as a condition of gaining access to highly classified information. The book, The Room Where It Happened, a White House memoir, is due to hit the shelves next Tuesday. And Bolton, a veteran Washington insider and a controversial conservative hawk, was a close advisor to President Donald Trump. He's believed to have taken meticulous notes during his various meetings with President Trump and other senior personnel. After the two had a public falling out, Bolton in January threatened to become a prime witness against President Trump in the U.S. leader's Senate impeachment trial, but only if the Senate issued a subpoena for his testimony. Bolton, in the book's epilogue, also accuses President Trump of seizing Bolton's advisor's documents, obstructing his Twitter account, and making outright threats of censorship, according to Axios. The government says Bolton is in breach of basic secrecy rules after refusing to wait for the National Security Council to go through the text as required. Eagle News will be right back.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können. Die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten. Sie wertschätzen.
Hello, my name is Robin and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside. And I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor. Or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Right then volume 450. If I want to 100%. Traffic back. Construction.
Hong Kong's Disneyland will reopen its doors on Thursday following nearly 5 months of closure, according to the park on Monday, in a fresh boost for a city that has largely managed to defeat the coronavirus. Take a look.
We will have many photo opportunities for our guests. It's just not going to be as up and close, which I think all of us understand the reason why that is. But we'll be finding characters and new locations and new experiences to take photos that, frankly, may never have been taken before by our guests. So we expect that to be something that will really delight our guests throughout the park experience.
Yeah, so we have government regulations that we're following, as well as health advice that specifically addresses the capacity of our different attractions. And some will be at 50% and some will be based on the ride vehicles that we have. But yes, the attractions will be operating at a reduced capacity to accommodate the social distancing, as well as the increased frequency of our cleaning of the attractions. So there will be fewer guests in the park than we typically would have, and there will be fewer guests in the queue. And we'll be managing that by introducing markers in the queue to help guests stay apart from one another. So the queues will be more comfortable because you'll be further apart. Parties will be separate from other parties. And yes, there will be fewer guests actually standing in those queues. Yes, we know that when we reopen the park, there will be travel restrictions in place, and our focus is going to be on the local individuals who reside here in Hong Kong. And of course, with opening at a reduced capacity, that affords us the ability to really focus in and welcome back the people of Hong Kong to Hong Kong Disneyland.
Visitors will need to sign health declarations, submit to regular temperature checks, and wear masks at all times unless eating. Park said in a statement, it is just the second Disneyland around the world to resume services during the pandemic. After Shanghai turned its lights and rides back on last month, Tokyo and Paris remain closed, while the company's flagship park in California is eyeing a July reopening. Hong Kong was one of the first places to record coronavirus infections after the disease first emerged in central China, morphing into a global pandemic and enveloping much of the world in a recession. But the finance hub has since managed to largely halt local transmission with just over 1,100 infections and 4 deaths. All overseas passengers are screened at the airport and quarantined by authorities if found to be infected, on top of a mandatory 14-day home quarantine for arrivals. Across the globe, tourism operators are desperate to restart business, trialing different forms of social distancing as lockdowns ease.
I'm sorry.
In other news, Japanese geisha Cha-Cha sits on her knees with her fingertips neatly placed on the wooden floor, gracefully bowing to an audience before her traditional dance. But due to the coronavirus, her audience is not in the traditional tatami parlor, but behind a computer screen. Take a look.
家族以外と話してなかったので、他の人と喋れるっていう感覚ですか？画面上でも飲みながらでも誰かと話せるっていうのは、逆に嬉しいことでしたかね。
やっぱり芸者さんのね、お仕事にもすごく影響が出てきたので、売り上げとかね、そういうのがない中でも何かポジティブなことできないかなっていうことで、一つが芸者さんに会ったことがない層の人たちも芸者さんと会える機会を作って、箱根芸者さんのことを知ってもらうようなこと何かできないかなっていうことで、オンライン飲み会を始めました。
どんなに気をつけてもどんなに頑張ってもやっぱり怖いっていうふうに言われてしまえば、やっぱそれはね、来て来てとも言えないですし、その状態でお客さんにいついつ来てよっても言えなくなってくるので、でもそれでもお客様が安心して来てくださる、来られるようになればっていうのはもう本当に思いはしますけど、どうしていきましょう本当に。
A gym in Mexico is boosting virus prevention measures by introducing workout cubicles that allow fitness buffs to exercise while maintaining physical distance. Take a look.
Se acondicionó con cabinas individuales en las que solo la persona que está entrando es la que está tocando el equipo. Nadie más toca el equipo, todo se desinfecta entre clases para mayor seguridad.
Ejercitarse en casa es un poco difícil ya que todo el día se la mantiene uno atendiendo a los hijos, las labores de la casa y pues se va todo el día sin poder lograr ejercitarse un poco. Así que aproveché la oportunidad cuando me dijeron que tenían esta nueva modalidad aquí en este gimnasio.
And before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.